East Africa has one of the most amazing cultures, both found in Tanzania and Kenya. Proudly standing in the savannah with their red blankets and painted shields, the Maasai people have become one of the most widely known symbols of East Africa. In their traditional dress, they are not only found in the villages but also in the streets of the cities as well. Join us on a journey of discovery into the history and the culture of the Maasai. My name is Judith Mkomo. The Maasai originated from the northern part of Kenya, called Turkana. They began to migrate in the 18th century, and some settled in the northern part of Tanzania, that is Ngorongoro and Serengeti. The number of the Maasai in Kenya is estimated to be approximately 800,000, with about the same number living in Tanzania as well. The Maasai speak a language called Ma. This language is the southernmost of the Nilotic group, which includes the idioms spoken both in Ethiopia and Sudan. Their lifestyle has remained unchanged, since they have resisted settling in the permanent homes and distancing themselves from the urban areas. The Maasai culture is predominantly patriarchal, with the Council of Elders who oversee daily matters in their villages. Execution and slavery were known in the Maasai society. Arguments and misunderstandings are settled through cattle payments. Cattle herding is still the main economic activity of the Maasai people, and it is central to their lifestyle at large. Traditionally, their diet consisted mainly of raw meat, raw blood, and milk. The other byproducts of the animals, such as skin hides, were used for building houses and making fashionable shields. Wealth is measured by the number of children and cattle that one owns. With time, they have engaged with other economic activities like farming. The women have found their way out of poverty by the artistry of the beadwork, which has now become their main source of income, enabling them to support their families. According to Ashlyn Sebesta, she states that in the Maasai community, circumcision was not only done to men, but to women as well. A new group of soldiers is initiated every 15 years of age, chosen among men aging between 12 and 25. These men and women would undergo strict training separately, accompanied with a series of initiation rites, the most important of which is circumcision. Circumcision is the ability to withstand pain. This is a part of a young warrior's transition to manhood and a young woman to women. The ritual is performed shortly after puberty. One thing about circumcision, it elevates growth from childhood to adulthood. This ritual was accompanied with songs and dances. During circumcision and marriage rites of passage, men and women would shave their heads. The warriors were the only ones allowed to grow their hair and usually wear very thin braids. There were body modifications such as stretching their earlobes using stones, wood, and bones. Usually, they wear beaded earrings on the stretched earlobe and smaller piercings on top of the ear. Traditionally, both men and women stretched their earlobes because it was seen as a symbol of wisdom and respect amongst the people in the community. But now, this custom is becoming extinct, especially among young men. They worship one God who dwells in all things, that may manifest himself as either kind or destructive. Many Maasai today, however, belong to various Christian churches. According to Zegram Expedition states that marriage took place right after initiation. Women from the age of 11 would be married off to a man chosen by the father in exchange of cattle. One of the most interesting traditions practiced was polygamy. When a woman marries, she just doesn't marry her husband, but his entire age group as well. Another striking part of this practice was that a man would give up his bed to a visiting male guest. Shuka is the most recognizable piece of cloth worn by the Maasai. Usually, it is wrapped around their body. In the 17th century, they would use animal hide for clothing, until in the 20th century, when cotton was introduced instead. The color of the Maasai attire varies according to their age and gender. Men would wear black right after circumcision for several months, whereas women usually opt for checked and striped piece of cloth. Their clothing was accompanied by beadwork and color pattern. Each color pattern had a symbol and meaning. For instance, white would represent peace, blue would represent water, while red would represent bravery. These beads were obtained in the 19th century after trading with the Europeans, but before they would use clay, shells, and ivory for decorations. The Maasai are also known for their jumping form of dance, which was carried out by the warriors. This dance is known as Adumu. The warriors form a semicircle and take turns in jumping at the center. Traditional Maasai music follow a call response and pattern called Namba. A vocalist known as Oloranyami sings the melody and others respond in uniform. Singing is also accompanied by body movements, tilting a head back and forth. Despite the Maasai holding firm to their culture, they have been resistant in changing their way of life and move to the urban areas. Some have been able to attend schools and become prominent people in the society. Some have been forced to settle, and some take jobs in the city. Numerous projects have been implemented to help the tribal leaders to find a way to preserve their traditions and a way of life, also trying to balance the education and needs for the children in the modern world. Many of them have starred away from the nomadic life to positions in business, commerce,